Done.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Happy Wednesday. I almost said happy Friday earlier, which we're still a few days off from that. But thanks for spending a little time today joining us for our panel discussion on cybersecurity and insurance. We're really going to be walking through just different cyber risks and threats, but also how to create resilience in your business, not only on the cybersecurity side, but also on the insurance side with Databranch and then Both Branch and Hendrix and Datto as well. So a little bit intro to all of us. My name is Taylor Thorson. I am a channel development manager here at Datto. I've been with Datto for about 4 years now through changes, acquisitions, different things like that. And I am based in Phoenix, Arizona. So I'm a little bit warmer than where you guys are. And a little bit different side of the country, but so excited to be here. So Mike Wilson, I'll let you go next.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you all being here. Super excited. Anybody who knows me knows when I start talking about cybersecurity, I tend to get really deep in the weeds. So hopefully we've got some really good information for you guys that's going to be valuable on the role that cyber insurance plays with your cybersecurity. So Mike Wilson, I'm the president here at Databranch. For those of you who are not familiar with Databranch, we're a managed service provider who partner with our clients to proactively manage your IT infrastructure, your day-to-day support needs, while most importantly, keeping cybersecurity at the forefront of everything that we do. I've personally been in the IT space for about 25 years, everywhere from MSP technician to enterprise IT admin at healthcare, chief technology officer, and now president. So I've seen quite a bit, done a lot, and everything in between that. So again, look forward to discussing cybersecurity best practices, and again, that role that cyber insurance really has in that. Amanda Lasky is not listed on our slide, but she is on our panel and a key player in what we do here. So I'll throw it over to you, Amanda, to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name's Amanda. I've been with Databranch for almost 10 years, and I currently serve as our Director of Sales and Marketing. I really love that I get to work with businesses in our local community to really help them make sure that their critical business data is secure and protected. I see a lot of friendly faces joining us today, a lot of our great clients. So happy to have you here and look forward to the conversation. And then Mike Hendrix, you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Mike Hendrix. I'm one of the partners, and I'm an agent with Both Branch Hendrix. We're located in Olean, New York. My practice focuses on business insurance as well as risk management. I've been involved in the cyber insurance industry for probably about 15 years or so. We have clients all the way from just your mom and pop store all the way up to manufacturers who have hundreds of employees, and all those have different IT needs as well as cyber insurance needs. I have numerous clients who unfortunately have had cyber experience with incidences. So we also have experience in how the claim process handles. As Mike may be able to attest, and Amanda, Databranch, we've been partners with them for a number of years, and they have taught me that my job is to sell insurance and not to specifically do IT, which is really a good thing. But it's great being able to partner with them and to bring this topic to light as it affects everyone. Thanks.
So thank you, guys. So what we're really going to dive into again is that cybersecurity along with insurance, but also kind of how to create cyber resilience. Because when we look back on 5-10 years ago, all we heard about in the news was attacks, this and that, where the conversation I think now has really shifted to how resilient is your business if something were to happen, right? And we follow the NIST cybersecurity framework. So it's really this idea of identifying, protecting, detecting, responding, and recovering. Kind of this never-ending framework, you could say. And I know that Mike and Amanda have a lot of expertise in this, right? And so I think, Amanda, maybe I'll ask you this, but how does a business, how can they protect themselves with this layered approach? And what does that mean? And what does that look like from your guys' end?
Yeah, that's a great question, Taylor. At Databranch, we strongly believe in taking a layered security approach. The threats in the landscape, it's so vast that you really need to have, multiple measures in place, and you need to have a framework that you're following. All of our managed services offerings include our foundation security platform, which we've based off of the NIST framework. As you mentioned, it includes, being able to identify what you have, protecting those assets, having systems in place to detect if something does get into your environment, and then being able to respond and recover if something is detected. Mike, do you want to touch on how some of those areas are incorporated in our offerings?
Yep, absolutely. That was great. And as Amanda said, our foundation security stack is built based on the NIST cybersecurity framework. So as Amanda said, you have to know what you have to protect it, right? So part of a component in that is our RMM tool. It gives asset management and inventory of everything on your network, what it's doing, what it should be doing. And then there's additional pieces in each of these different sections of the framework. To protect it, you've got to have endpoint detection, things that are foundational. Endpoint detection, edge devices, sonic walls to protect people from getting into your network, end user security training. On the detect side, Huntress intrusion detection is something we use, but you have to have an intrusion detection. You have to have something to detect if there's things going on in your network that shouldn't be. Are there footholds? Is there suspicious activity? And then another key component, respond. And this is where Cyberinsurance plays a huge role, and we'll touch on that a bit later, but being able to respond to the threats, identify them, respond to them, and then ultimately recover, right? If worse comes to worse and you have to recover, do you have a strong business continuity solution? Do you have a disaster recovery solution? Datto is a fantastic partner of ours. It's the solution that we recommend to do this because it provides all of those aspects of backup, business continuity, and disaster recovery. So those are just a few of the examples of the tools and technologies we use based on that cybersecurity framework to keep our clients and our partners protected and secure.
Absolutely. And then I know Mike Hendrix, we talk a lot with you, but how does Cyberinsurance play a part into incident response as well, briefly?
So where we come in is that, everything that Mike and Amanda have just described, they all work fantastically. And where Cyberinsurance comes in is when when life happens. The people who are trying to get into your systems are very, very good at fooling people. And even the most technology-driven person can be fooled into clicking on something that probably they shouldn't have. So we kind of say that, when IT is all working correctly and human error comes in, that's where, when you have a situation, that's where the Cyberinsurance steps in to provide the money and another layer of expertise to get you back up and get you going.
Absolutely. And we're going to touch on this, but it's human error is one of the, main reasons that sometimes these breaches and attacks happen. But also we talk a lot about this, right? That no matter your size, you're always at a high risk for a data breach. It's easy to think, oh, they're going after a Google, a Target, these big guys, where that is not the case. And we'll walk through some stats that really show that no matter your size, you're still at a high risk for these breaches happening to you and your business. Because in general, they're really happening to all of us. And sometimes they're not reported on the news. We don't hear about it all the time, but it's all around us, especially if you're in healthcare, government, education. Mike Wilson, I know you work in this day in and day out, right? Where are you seeing, the top targets in what industries and why are they being targeted? I should really ask.
Yeah, no, those are great, questions. And the slides are fantastic because it is all of us. Everybody is being targeted, whether you think, whether you think you have valuable proprietary information or compliancy information. The fact of the matter is, a lot of this is random. So these kind of phishing attempts, ransomware, that kind of stuff just gets delivered to mass quantities of people. And a lot of times it's random, right? So you may not actually being targeted. It's not what we see on TV all the time of it's going to be a targeted attack, if you will. A lot of those do happen. And, that's a part of cybersecurity, but a lot of this is random, and phishing is the #1 attack vector that we see. Everybody's using email every day, all day. It is a key component of what we do for our operations, right? Everybody uses email to communicate with partners, vendors. So that is the biggest attack vector that we are seeing. these payloads and these social engineering attempts come through. So I guess that's kind of I don't see any specific sector. Obviously, government is being attacked, healthcare is being attacked, MSPs and IT providers are being attacked. But when it comes to manufacturing and education and these different verticals, there's nobody's off limits. Everybody is a target just from some of the random nature of these attacks. If you spray something out far and wide enough, you're going to get people that are going to get tricked. They're going to click on things. They may or may not have the right security protocols in place to protect them and shed light on that. And that's why these work.
Totally. And I was going to jump on and say, even if you don't see like the industry you're working in or the niche that you're in, that doesn't mean that you're not still being targeted, right? These are just what we're kind of seeing as the top targeted industries. Right. And so you're being targeted for a ton of different reasons, but obviously you have, useful data, especially if you think about the government or healthcare, right? Those people have social security numbers, HIPAA information, credit card numbers. If you're a bank, I think these bad guys tend to know that SMBs often lack strong cybersecurity defenses, which we'll kind of dive into as we go into some stats next. And then obviously just compliance obligations, data is hosted, stored in many locations. Things are just a little bit scattered. And that's typically why we see these organizations being targeted. So I kind of love sharing this. So 99.9% of businesses in the US are SMBs, which I think is really interesting because we tend to think that the big guys make up the majority when it's really SMBs that are making up the majority. And when we look at cyber attacks, about 50% of those are being aimed at small to medium sized businesses, which is a huge amount. And kind of building off what Mike Wilson said, 85% of all email attachments are harmful and 91% of attacks are launched from phishing attacks. And they're getting even better at this, right? Because now they're going on our cell phones. They're acting like, I don't know if you guys have had this happen to you, but like I'll get texts from my so-called boss or CEO, like, hey, I need you to do this for me. Random Teams, messages pop up. They're getting better and better at just mimicking things that we tend to trust. And then cybercrime will cost 10.5 trillion, which is insane. This isn't necessarily going anywhere. And then if business is hit with ransomware, about every 11 seconds is what the statistics are showing. And so if this happens to you, they're saying data breaches in the US cost twice as much as global. And then again, kind of building off what Mike said earlier, human error accounts for 95% of cyber attacks. So people are always our greatest risks. And phishing still remains the number one type of cyber crime, right? So this isn't slowing down. If anything, it's really ramping up. And so on the Databranch side, what are some foundational practices that everyone in their business should adapt, no matter size, no matter what, no matter what industry that they're in?
Yep, I can jump on that one, Taylor, because cybersecurity doesn't have to always be expensive as well, right? I know.
I love that. Yeah.
There are a lot of things you need to do, right? There are foundational components that you have to put in place, but there's also things that are built in that everybody should be leveraging as much as possible. Multi-factor authentication, any system personally and in your business that has multi-factor authentication inherently built into it, you should be utilizing that. Email, especially cloud applications, anything that can be accessed from anywhere on the internet, you have to have multi-factor authentication on. Strong password hygiene, right? Not reusing passwords on different accounts. If one gets breached, now somebody has that password for every single account. That's all part of password hygiene. Using password managers to be able to have strong, secure, unique passwords is essential, because you may be compromised through no fault of your own. Part of password hygiene and good user management is that you don't use your same username and password across multiple systems. There are certain scenarios where you have to do that, LinkedIn, right? But you should never be using your corporate or business email on a home purchasing site or a weightlifting site, anything like that, because if they get breached, now those credentials are dumped out to the dark web. And if you have the same password in use anywhere else, that will get sprayed across every platform that people can think of, and you may be compromised, again, through no fault of yours. So having multi-factor authentication, having that strong password hygiene are things that you can do impactful things that don't take a lot of resources to implement. And then just keeping your software patched, right, and current. That's another thing. We keep seeing lots and lots of breaches because of zero-day vulnerabilities and the like. Keeping software patched and managed is a huge component to it. And then again, end user security training. I use this line all the time. We can put technologies and tools and processes in place, but as Mike Hendrix alluded to, if and when a human error occurs, that is something that you can't really put a piece of software on, right? So continuous end user security training, annual training, making sure your users know the current state of affairs, what's the scam of the day, those kind of things are they should be in the forefront of every business. And Amanda, do you want to talk a little bit about end user security training, kind of our take on it and what we recommend there?
Yeah, no, end user security awareness training is a key component in any business's security plan. We recommend that businesses take a continuous training approach. Historically, companies have done that once a year training, gather everybody together, have them watch the 45-minute presentation, and then we all get back together again next year to do the same thing. And that definitely has its place. We recommend that businesses do a foundational annual training every year, but then you need to build upon that. So one of the solutions we offer, we recommend to clients from a continuous perspective is doing weekly trainings, having short little videos that help keep your users, up to date with the most current security, trends, things to look out for, and also keeping it top of mind for them. And then, from a organizational leadership perspective, Mike Hendrix might be able to touch on this, but we've started to see, cyber insurance forms always used to ask, do you have a security training platform in place? They're now asking, is everybody taking it? What is your adoption on it? Not just do you have it in place, are you using it? And a lot of that comes from leadership at the top. Everybody needs to take the training, have it become a part of your company policy. We tend to equate it to, in manufacturing, you've historically had safety training. This is really safety training for your technology. And that's the approach we recommend businesses take.
I love it.
That's fantastic. Taylor, I'll jump back in and we'll go just off script a little. You touched on something, Amanda, that was really really important with those cyber insurance forms. They continue to evolve. They continue to get longer. Maybe in the past it used to be, do you have this technology, right? It was very vague. Yeah, yes, I have that. Click, right? We check the box. But now they're, I think, getting a little more evolved, more complex. Not just do you have it for the sake of checking a box, but are you using it? Are you implementing it? Can you report on it? Mike Hendrix, do you have some information maybe for us on that component of that cyber insurance form and how it's been evolving and what they're looking for and why it matters?
Absolutely. So, not to minimize the event itself, but the COVID pandemic was kind of the 9/11 for cyber insurance. Up until that time, the insurance industry, it was a relatively new product for them. And they kind of willy-nilly just threw it out there and they just asked some very basic questions, like you're saying, Mike. In fact, at that time, they didn't even require MFA or password security or even, password rules. So what we've seen since that time is a major correction in the cyber insurance world. There's eligibility requirements that they have in order to get the best pricing. If you don't have certain safeguards in place or training in place, you may not be able to purchase a policy. As far as the applications, I run into this frequently, and I know the people that I work with at the insurance companies, they all kind of take a different look when I send them an application, because I'm not beholden to a yes or a no question, because quite frequently with cyber insurance, the answer is yes and no. It depends on the size of an organization, and it depends upon what safeguards they have in place. And I have a number of companies where more times than not, the question is yes and no. And then we provide further explanation of what we mean by yes and no. So I'm always I'm writing in margins on applications. I'm attaching separate sheets, because it's very important for the insurance company to understand exactly what your setup is. And that's where, folks like you at Databranch become very important in that process, because even in my own case, as much as I like IT, if you were to ask me some granular questions as to my cyber setup, I might get it mostly right, but I don't speak the language that the insurance companies are looking for. So it's important to be able to work with coordination between your IT provider as well as your insurance agent to lay it out there. The importance of that really has come full circle in that a lot of times insurance companies will attach the application to the actual policy. And the reason why they do that is if you have a cyber situation, they're going to go back and look at how you answered that question. And if they're able to find a place where you didn't answer it or you were not clear on it, that can cause an issue with whether your claim is covered or not. So very, very important. And yes, they've gotten a lot more specific in wanting the information to properly rate your program.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was just going to say too, Mike Wilson, you mentioned just like a few different things like MFA or two-factor authentication, password sanitation. I think we just looked at the stats on the Datto side, and it's like the number one password in 2022 was still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So we have a good amount of people on this call. So I think it's just a good reminder always to say, hey, like, make sure you're checking your passwords, make sure you're changing them, make sure you're not like cutting corners, because that is like a very key piece to security as well, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So we were also like, we just love to kind of include examples when we do panels like this of just like what's happening in the world, what's happening local to you guys. What are things that you should be aware of? I know, Mike, again, you live this day in and day out, and I know that you've about 20 years of experience, you said, right?
25, yep.
25. So you've seen it all. You've seen the change in technology. You've seen the change in attacks. What do you see coming? What do you see happening now? Have you had any like personal experiences? Obviously, at Databranch that you can kind of share some pieces of advice or anything you'd like to share.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is a great slide, right? It's happening all the time. I think, Taylor, you just said every 11 seconds, there's an incident, right? A cyber event. It's not if, it's when is basically what the FBI says at every conference that we go to. And we see that in real life. Erie County Medical Center, they were, they had a massive breach and incident. I actually responded to that. I was part of a team that went to ECMC, and, the technology is one thing, and being able to recover and having backups and all of the stuff put in place. But just like any crisis or any disaster, it gets very hard to think, right? So it's very chaotic. You've got, lots of people doing a lot of things, trying to come up with solutions, trying to restore operations. So, it's happening and it's hectic. So having a plan and being ready for that is one big thing. But specifically to the question, right? What's happening in the cybersecurity landscape? IT and cybersecurity are fast evolving. They've been fast evolving. It continues to get even quicker in the evolution with things like, we've got Tom Hanks here, right? The AI analogy. Artificial intelligence is a very new technology that is becoming more prevalent, and it will change the face of how I think everybody does business. It makes it so that the days of being able to spot easy grammatical errors, or you can tell when someone's typing not in their native language, those days are gone with artificial intelligence. You can use an AI bot to create any sort of content you want, including very well-crafted, hard to spot phishing attempts. So you used to be able to tell very, pretty easily that, okay, this doesn't look right. But they're so sophisticated and so complex now, and with AI, it just continues to evolve and get harder and harder to spot. So that's one piece of it. Supply chain attacks, we're seeing more and more of those, where if they can't get you as the SMB or your data because you're well protected, they're going for bigger game. Some supply chain attacks, for those who might not know what they are, is where basically they would attack the actual supplier, the Microsoft, the different vendors that are out there, hopefully get something into their software that is undetected. And then when it gets deployed to the masses, they've already got a foothold. We've actually seen some application, CCleaner would be an example where they actually, it's a legitimate good software that got put out into the into the public that had a piece of ransomware built into it. So again, through no fault of yours, you're deploying a legitimate piece of software. Supply chain attacks are a very real thing that continue to come up. And then one that everybody may have seen, Caesars and MGM in Vegas. These are gigantic facilities, gigantic organizations with massive cybersecurity budgets, and they were tricked through social engineering. So somebody was able to call in, trick a help desk person into giving them access to something, and it worked. So social engineering continues to be on the rise for an attack vector. And again, that's back to that end user security training, which is why you need to continue to push that for your employees and take that seriously, because somebody can call you at any point and have scoured your business site, scoured your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your different social medias, and they're very good at it. It is their job. They can trick you into thinking that they know all of this stuff because they're a member of your team or they're in your organization. So yeah, AI and social engineering, I would say, are the two biggest things that come to mind for me right now, as far as things to be aware of, and the evolution and the scary part of cybersecurity and where it's going.
Absolutely. I was going to kind of build off that too, Michael. So like the interesting thing with the MGM too is sometimes we think as cyber attacks is just on our computers, right? Like, oh, they're just getting in our systems, but it's like MGM, they could even turn the lights on because that was all on their systems. So it goes so much more beyond than just our computers at this point, because we live in such an interconnected world and everything is connected now, that ransom can really hit a ton of different things that really affect our lives too, I thought that was interesting when I was reading about the MGM. I had absolutely no idea that would be the case.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, Taylor, everything is an IoT world, right? Internet of Things. Everything's connected. Everything is online and can be accessed. I read on that same, I think I read the FCC report of the MGM breach, and I believe they were unsuccessful, but they were able to kill the lights and they were able to do all sorts of bad stuff. They were unsuccessful, I guess, unfortunately for whoever was at the casino that day. They tried to hack the slot machines and alter the payouts and make them just start spitting out tickets, but they were unsuccessful at that. So,
Well, I guess we should have been there that day if we were going to win.
Yeah.
We picked the wrong time not to be in Vegas. No, again, crazy, just all the things that are connected. And it's, you look at like the early 90s, we had maybe a cell phone and a computer in our household, where now you probably have 20 devices that are connected in one household. So you can just see where it's so much easier for these guys to like penetrate into different systems and things like that. So we love to kind of share as well, like the threat landscape and where are attacks happening. And I love showing this because you can see that they're happening everywhere, all around the United States, especially the East Coast. The East Coast seems to be a mega target for these people. And it's really interesting too, because you can Google like live ransomware tracking and it'll show you where these attacks are happening in real time, because they're, again, happening every 11 seconds. It might even be a little bit quicker now when you go watch it live. But, pre-COVID, people weren't working from home. We didn't have to worry about safety at home, security at home, different things like that. And I know that now as we are post-COVID, remote work's pretty normal, right? People don't really know what that looks like. So when people are working from home, because I'm sure there's people on here that do, as I do myself, what measures should not only the employees take, but their companies to implement security from a remote workers, especially as we continue on in this kind of virtual world that we're living in?
Yep, no, I'll jump right on that. That's a great one. And the goal of this slide isn't to say move to Oklahoma, because they don't have very many cybersecurity.
I'm from South Dakota, and I'm like, I should move home. Like this is a good sign for me.
Yeah, but remote work introduces a whole nother level of risk, right, to organizations. You have to keep the remote workforce productive and secure, and keep the organization secure. So when you're opening up your network to remote access, those are things that have to be, kept in mind, and they're vital. We recommend for company owned and controlled devices that have your security posture. They have your tools, they have the stack, right? SSL VPNs or some sort of secure edge solution where you extend your corporate network to those devices is a great solution. Obviously, having multi-factor authentication on those is vital because people are connecting remotely from anywhere. So you've got to make sure that's very well protected. But not everybody works from home or works remotely with a company-owned device, which introduces a whole nother component, right? You don't know the security posture. You don't know what antivirus or what patching level could be on these devices. So we highly recommend those do not get connected to corporate networks. We have a solution that's called TrueGrid, and basically that keeps a nice separation between that, home laptop, home device that's connecting into your network so that they can still work and see what they need to for the organization, but there's no bleed over from your home network, your home device that again may or may not have a decent security posture on it. So again, there's good ways, but yeah, if it's not a corporate owned and secured device that you are 100% confident and comfortable in the security posture, you should by no means have that connect to your network. You should use another technology similar to what I mentioned with TrueGrid to keep them, separate but able to function, because that's really the goal. That we can, I joke all the time, so there's a balance between security and productivity. If you can lock something down so much that you can't actually do your job, well, that's great. You're not going to get hacked. You're not going to get phished, but there's no sense in actually being an employee at that point. So you do have to make it, make it a good balance of we're very secure, we're in a good spot, but we also are low impact on the end user's performance, because that's very key, the end user experience. And just another kind of plug for our foundation tool, foundation security offering, the tools that we have in it are built to be as least impactful on the performance side of the device, because nobody wants to, like I said, go load 100 pieces of software that drag the performance down. So it's built to be lightweight, but also give you extreme value on the security side of it without impacting performance. So,
Mike, would you suggest people not using their personal computers if possible, or is it fine as long as you're taking the right precautions?
And yeah, another great question. So just like Mike said on the forums, yes and no. There are limits to what you can do through different technologies, like a TrueGrid that remotely connects you, but keeps kind of a barrier between that home device. In a perfect world, every device your employees would be using would be company owned, company maintained, company managed, and have the security posture that and have agreed to and signed off on. Right? Anytime you introduce a home or a device that just isn't from your organization or monitored and managed by your organization, you do introduce risk. Again, there's tools that can be put into place like that TrueGrid. But yes, in a perfect world, it would be nothing but corporate owned or business owned devices.
Awesome.
But that's not always practical, as everybody knows.
Right. But there obviously is things for people to do if they are using their personal computers to set themselves up for success.
Yep, evaluating each scenario of who is going to be working from home, what their role is, what the functionality they need is, right? Because not every solution gives you the same functionality. So everything should be kind of looked at on a case-by-case basis.
Absolutely. Well, I think this is probably what everyone's kind of wondering, I should start asking. But, we talk about the NIST framework. We talk about this layered security approach. We talked about what's happening in the world that we're living in. But let's say worst case scenario, if something happens, we get breached. What do we do if we get breached, not only on the IT side, but also what do we do on the insurance side? I think this is something that people think about a lot, and they're like, I actually have no idea what I would actually do. So I know they have a ton of insight into this and can give you guys, real examples and show you what you do if you find yourself in this situation.
Yeah, and I can jump on this one to start. If you have a concern of any sort of suspicious behavior or that there may be a breach, obviously you should be contacting, your IT folks, your managed service provider, contacting Databranch. Odds are we will already be working on it if you're currently a client, and we have alerting and monitoring and different things in place. So IT plays a very vital, central role in that, right? Is there an actual breach, right? Reviewing the incident, what's happening, what sort of indicators of compromise or footholds could be in the system. And then once it's either strongly, if it's confirmed, or if you have a strong suspicion that there may be a true full-scale breach or incident potentially happening, that's when you put your incident response plan into place. And one of the key components that I'm going to guess many people don't know is the role that insurance plays in that, and cyber insurance. So basically, you're talking to IT, you confirm a breach or you have a suspicion of a breach, the first thing to do is put in incident response and contact your cyber insurance policy holder, like a Both Branch and Hendrix, and say, here's what's happened, here's what our IT folks are saying, what do we do now? Right? So Mike, do you want to kind of walk us through, that scenario? I'm sure you've had it in the past where you've had to get called and it's like, hey, we've got an email compromise, or we've got suspicious behavior. Here's what we've done in-house. We've been either advised or just reached out to you on their own. And then what's the next step, and what role does the cyber insurance policy play in that?
Yeah, and to kind of restate what you said, Mike, when we've had clients that if you have, an IT provider that knows your systems, has set up your systems, manages your systems, they're the first place to call when something is getting a little crazy. And if it's determined that you have had a breach, and sometimes it's really apparent, your screen basically says, we've taken your system, and if you want it back, you need to pay a certain amount of Bitcoin. That would be the ransomware attack. So what happens at that point, it's important to get your cyber insurance agent involved. And we've had real life experience with this. And essentially the way that it works is, if you have cyber insurance and we get that call from you or from your IT provider, we contact the cyber insurance company. The cyber insurance policy itself, what it provides is 24/7, 365 service, so that when that call comes in, our experience has been, once we get them, we report the incident to them via their 800 number. We provide them with the client's name and the client contact. And if we know the IT professional that they have, we give them their contact information. Our experience is within 20 minutes, if we're able to coordinate, when we coordinate that the specialists now are logging into your system to try to determine what happened. How do we stop what's happening? How do we quarantine it? And then they'll start working in a process of what will it take to restore your system. So as I mentioned before, all the IT safeguards are necessary in order to get a cyber insurance policy. And when human error happens, even in the most innocent way, what the cyber insurance does is it brings not only the money to pay for your restoration, but it also brings in the expertise that'll work with your IT specialist. And the firms that the insurance companies work with, they deal with this type of situation, only this type of situation, every day, all day, 365 days a year. So they can complement what your IT people are doing by bringing that expertise in. So when we look at breach response, again, they're going to identify what's going on with your system. Probably in 98% of the cases that I've had, within a half an hour, they know exactly what's going on in your system. They can identify what's going on. They can identify the bad actors who maybe are in your system. And what they'll do is, at that point, it determines their level of response as to whether it's a matter of just shutting stuff down and buying yourself some time, or they can just easily quarantine people and the bad actors so that they don't continue doing what they're doing. So the cyber insurance policy gives you those experts to do that. They will then work with your IT specialists to restore your systems and eradicate whatever the issue is. The other thing the cyber policies will bring, and this is due, everyone talks about privacy. We have state and federal privacy laws. And depending upon your business and the type of information you have on your system, you have legal requirements to advise certain agencies if you've had a breach. So with the insurance policy, and part of that is you have to do a forensic search to determine how did they get in, where did they go, and what did they have access to. Again, the cyber insurance policy provides the expertise to do that. But importantly, they also provide legal representation. And the nice thing with that is upon providing an attorney who is well-versed in privacy laws for state and federal, is you now have someone who speaks the language of the regulatory agencies, so that if you are required to respond to them and advise them that you've had a breach, these attorneys know the language that these regulatory agencies will acknowledge, and they remove the vagueness, so that you kind of put them back a little bit on their heels so that they're not breathing down your throat right away. Plus, you have an attorney involved. So what we've seen happen in that situation is that everyone involved, because there is an attorney, you have attorney-client representation. We had a situation with a medical facility who had a breach. They were being contacted by news media when word got out about that, and they referred them to the attorney provided by the Cyberinsurance company to respond. So that's a great thing to have. The other part of the cyber insurance is that it will protect you for third-party claims. So more and more, all of us are using, just like my agency, we have cloud-based databases that we're using. All of my clients are in the cloud. And I want to believe, and I do believe, that my cloud-based provider has all kinds of security. But what happens if my system gets compromised and through social engineering, they learn my password and my ID to access the cloud-based provider? Well, hopefully the cloud-based provider, if something's happening there that looks unnormal to their normal form of business, they would shut it down. But they're going to say, well, how did they get here? And if they discover my systems are compromised, I could have an issue with my cloud-based provider as far as cost. So when we look at all these things, what we're saying, what the cyber insurance brings is not only the specialist to help you through the situation and work with your IT provider, but they also bring the money to pay for it. In the claims that we've had, the simplest claim took less than 48 hours to resolve, and the bill was under $50,000. The worst case scenario that we've had, they actually went through the policy limits, and that was over $1 million. So they exhausted that. And to give you an idea of what we saw in both those situations, the one that was resolved in less than 48 hours, was that they had all the IT safeguards, but they also had a great restoration process in place that they could go back and restore their system from backups. And the other scenario, they had not invested in their IT solution and their IT safeguards, and the ransomware that came in released a virus that actually attacked their backup software. But the backup software was so old that in order to get a fresh restore of it, the software is not being made anymore. And it really compounded the issues with this company. And a lot of times we talk about this, and we're talking about cyber, we're talking about hacking, we're talking about people getting in your systems. It may happen instantly enough that one time, Mike, I know you're aware of this, and Amanda, our own file server, we got a bad update from our software company. And I came into work and saw the famous blue screen of death. And I thought, oh no, what happened? And I contacted Databranch, and we were back up and running within 20 minutes. We had to do a bare metal restore. I love that word. Because it sounds very dramatic. We don't have those in the insurance business. And that was enabled because we had Datto. And we were back up, fully restored, I'm going to say within 3 to 4 hours. So we were lucky, but we also made those investments to get us to that point. So that's a very important part of all of this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll jump on that real quick as well, Taylor, before we move on. I know we're getting a little short on time, but the forensic and the legal representation piece, Mike, are things that I don't think, I honestly didn't know that until maybe a year ago about the legal component that is in cybersecurity policies. So this all kind of segued into there's a question in the chat: is a hacked email account considered a breach? And like a lot of the questions that we were talking about earlier, it depends. So one of the things I learned from the legal folks that were on the call is that everything is considered an incident until they know what was touched, who saw it, what was exfiltrated potentially, because it depends. Once it's a breach, that's when I believe some of the legal components come into play that say this was a breach, and now these people have to be notified in a specific window of time. So that's where, again, the legal component, legal representation, not just from a reputational aspect, like Mike had said, with media outlets reaching out, but knowing who to contact, what to be able to tell them, and who to notify if there was a true breach. That's just a key component that, without cyber insurance, you're scrambling. Maybe you've got, in-house representation. Maybe you have a law firm you're working with, but do they know the details and the specifics and have done the cybersecurity component of that for, making sure that you are compliant with reporting to different regulatory bodies, state, county, et cetera. So I just wanted to kind of, round back on that real quick, because it's something that, again, even as an IT professional, I didn't realize the legal component of a cyber insurance policy.
So good. So much information. That was awesome. Thanks. I also did not know so much about that on the insurance side too. So that's awesome. So we're kind of moving into a little bit of a Q&A. So if you guys have questions, thoughts, anything like that, you can throw it right into that chat and we can answer live. I know, Amanda, we might have had a few questions too on our end that we can ask as well. So we'll just see if anything comes through. And if not, I'll kind of segue just into a really quick question, because we talked about the cybersecurity, we talked about the insurance piece, but one of the main points is having an incident response plan in place, right? And so what is that? And then, what key elements should people include in that? So that if they find themselves in the situation, they know what to do, who to go to, I should say too.
Yep, I could jump on that one as well. So again, incident response is extremely important for any organization. All organizations should have an incident response plan. If you have cyber insurance, your incident response plan gets a lot easier, right? It's basically enact an incident, know something happened, and then contact your cyber insurance provider, and they are going to drive your incident response from everything that, Mike just kind of laid out for us as far as the forensics, the breach response, working in conjunction with your IT provider to know what is happening, what's going on, and how to best mitigate and evacuate the bad actors. So yeah, having an incident response plan is essential to know what you have and then put things into action. It's just like our disaster recovery plans. I use this analogy all the time. We have engineers that all have gone through extensive Datto training to be able to restore systems. Right? Every single one of our engineers has that certification. They know exactly how to restore a server. But guess what we do? We build a full disaster recovery run book, a disaster incident plan, if you will, that has every single step outlined and detailed. This is exactly what you do when you are called on to do this, because anybody who's been involved with an emergency or any sort of chaotic event, it gets very hard to think, right? Even when it's something we've done hundreds of times, when everything is going externally and it's chaotic and there's stress and you're getting pulled in a million directions, it gets hard to think. So having the incident response plan, down on paper somewhere, that obviously online, but also offline in case your systems are not available, is what we recommend, and something that we review with clients during our quarterly business reviews. So I guess that's what I would say on that. Mike, any additional insight, or Amanda?
Yeah, Mike, you had mentioned about how public perception is very, very important, and whether it is the general public or obviously your clients are very, very important. When we think of the cyber insurance, I always kind of alluded to being a bucket full of money, and that money can be split up depending upon what your needs are. If the breach itself was simple to resolve and was resolved, there's also money there for public relations. And what the insurance company provides you with is, if you don't have the ability yourself, they'll provide you with someone who is skilled in public relations and how to, create the wording to reassure your customers that, just like everyone else, we were, fooled into having this happen, and they're able to put together the wording that represents you and your company to your clients, as well as to the general public. If you had a situation where you did have a breach of personal information or personal health information, what they then also provide with the insurance dollars, part of that bucket of money, is the required notification to your clients. There's federal and state laws. Health and Human Services will require you to do a disclosure to your clients. And then you also typically have to offer them identity protection for at least a 1-year period. The insurance, again, provides the money for those things.
Awesome. Great. Amanda, is there any other questions that we see or that you have?
Yep, I think we touched on the questions. We had one about instant response and the hacking of the email. So I think we've touched on that. But if anybody has any questions following the webinar, we'll have our contact information at the end. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And whether it's for Databranch or for Both Branch and Hendrix, we can get everybody connected where they need to be.
Absolutely. Because, we always say, right, that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. I know, Mike, you use this all the time. But it's good. Always be proactive, not reactive. And I know you can build off this a little bit with Databranch, but again, it's not a matter of really, if it'll happen, it's a matter of when it'll happen.
Yep, absolutely. And then I'm not sure where we began adopting this. I think Dave Prince actually was one of the original, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Famous Mike Tyson quote, but we use this when we talk to different people. But the key takeaway from this is to have a plan. You have to have a plan. You have to have a cyber resiliency plan that you are comfortable and confident in, right? You need cybersecurity tools and technologies that are working to keep you protected. You need things identifying that whole NIST cybersecurity framework. As Mike alluded to, you have to have a rock solid backup and business continuity plan so that if and when you need to recover, you can restore your organization's services so that you can continue to provide your services to your clients. That's a huge component that we take very seriously. But as the slide indicates, when things don't go as planned and what in life typically goes 100% as planned, you need partners, using the boxing analogy, in your corner, right, that are working for you on your behalf, that have seen it, that have done it, that are professionals that can, basically, stitch you up, get you back in the ring and get you, hopefully helping your clients and back performing. So, that's where Both Branch and Hendrix comes in on the insurance side. That's where Databranch on the IT and managed service side comes in. We've seen it, we've done it. We take it personally when we see cyber events and breaches, large and small, right? We want to prevent everything we can, but eventually, if and when somebody is compromised, you have to have a plan. You have to be able to recover, and again, having strong partners like Both Branch and Hendrix and Databranch are key components to that.
So, well, with that being said, Mike, Amanda, everybody that attended, thank you guys so much for taking some time out of your Wednesday to join us. And I know Amanda has a couple things on the slide, but just super appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Mike and Mike. I know from my perspective, there's a lot of really insightful information there. So I appreciate everyone, joining us today. As a additional thank you to everyone who attended, we would like to offer, a free security posture assessment from Databranch, and then a free cyber insurance assessment from Both Branch and Hendrix. If that's something anyone wants to take advantage of, you can reach out to me. My contact information is on the screen, or you can go to our website, Security Posture Review, and we'll get you connected. Same thing with Mike at Both Branch and Hendrix. You can send him over an email to mike@bbnhinsurance.com. And then also we will be sending out a recording of this event to everybody that attended. So if there's something you want to look back on or you want to share it with people, we definitely would encourage that as well. And then lastly, I would just say, it is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. That is, one of the reasons why we wanted to partner with Datto and Mike at Both Branch and Hendrix to bring this to everyone. And, if anyone does, reach out, set up that appointment to discuss further, we will be entering you into a giveaway. We've got $425 Amazon gift cards, and we'll be offering that through the end of the month in recognition of Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I'll follow up as well. Just thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you, everybody on the panel, Mike, Amanda, Taylor. This was great. Thanks for, narrating and walking us through it. Anybody who knows me or has talked about cybersecurity knows I can get a little long-winded. So I actually told Taylor and Amanda to, keep a stopwatch and reel me in if I need. But honestly, we take this stuff seriously. And if anybody has any questions, needs any counsel, advice, I'd love talking about it. So give us a call.
Awesome.